I see the born of no return. Sister, hey now, can't you see we're rushing for the end? I see the point of no return. Now I see the point of no return. It's just ahead.
Well, good evening. So glad that we've made it to yet another Monday. Yeah, it's now the May 12th of 2014, and you are listening to Wide Awake News on the Rents Radio Network. My name is Gary Hendershot, and for the next hour or so, I'm going to be barking at the moon. You know, I think most who've watched my ranting and raving for anything like the time realize that, yes, I have reached geezerdom, okay? I am officially an old geezer. And I got to tell you, old geezers, we the attraction to stuff is not quite what it used to be because, after living in the same home for about 35 years, you kind of look around and you say, holy cow, where did I get all this stuff? And then you stop and think about, oh yeah, I remember when I bought that. Yeah, it was real important at the time, but now it's just junk, and you start, you go up in the attic and you look at stuff you haven't seen in 20 years. And you wonder, why did I keep that? Why is that still here? How come I didn't get rid of that 20 years ago? And you start looking at all the accumulated stuff of your life. And, you just overwhelmed with where it all came from and why it was so necessary to have. And, there is a moral to that story. It's kind of a cautionary message to the youngsters out there. One of these days, you're going to find that, you've got a house and it's full of stuff. And you've acquired so much stuff that you now have to have one of those rent-a-sheds somewhere. So you're paying rent on a space to put more of your stuff in that you haven't looked at in a long, long time. But you just can't bear to part with it. And the warning is this materialism that we've grown so accustomed to can be a significant burden to you once you reach my age. You might want to think twice every time you go out and say, oh boy, I got to have this new widget because so-and-so got one and he says it's really cool. You might want to think about that because, that nifty gadget that looks so bright and shiny and cool today, a couple, 2, 3, 4, 5 years down the road is just going to be another item added to your pile of stuff. That reminds me of the memorable words of one of my favorite philosophers, a fellow many of you probably don't even remember, a fellow by the name of George Carlin, who had a really cool stand-up comedy bit where, he talked about my stuff and your shit. Yeah. Think about it, Something else, because I am advancing in years at this point, the attraction to a flashy automobile just really isn't what it used to be. I mean, I got a automobile. It's a 2001. It's been paid for a long, long time. The car's only got 60,000 miles on it. I mean, I could probably drive it for another 2-3 years before it's totally wore out. Last time I bought an automobile, I remember being absolutely shocked that to get a halfway decent automobile, I was going to have to pay somewhere between $50,000 and $20,000. I just thought that was outrageous. $15,000 to $20,000 for an automobile. My goodness, I thought to myself, there's probably people out there who don't make that much in a year, and you got to pay that kind of money to get an automobile. Well, here recently, the new car itch has started to get to me. One of the cars in my fleet is a 1998, believe it or not. Yeah, I'm still running a 1998. I think it's got about 150,000 miles on it. Still runs good, One of those old V8 powered Mercury Marquis. Those were some sweet old cars back in the day. But that car's kind of out of style now, and it is getting to be kind of old, I guess. And it does have 150,000 miles on it, so it's probably time, that I retire that car from the fleet and actually ante up and buy a new car, something I haven't done in a decade. Well, I've been going around looking, to see what's out there, and wow, I thought I was shocked back in 2001, 2002 when I last bought an automobile. I thought, holy cow, I got to pay somewhere between $15,000 and $20,000. I thought that was a lot of money. Seems that to get even a nice medium grade automobile nowadays is going to cost me somewhere between $35,000 and $40,000. $35,000 and $40,000. Holy cow. Hard for me to imagine, but, yeah. 35, 40. I remember, the house that I lived in when I was growing up as a teenager. I think my parents bought that house for $40,000. Just gives you an idea how times change. Needless to say, enough of my trials and tribulations. Let's see what's going on in the world. Everybody's favorite fella, Secretary of State John Kerry, just recently came out of meetings with our allies in the incursion into Syria. You remember Syria? You remember, Damascus? You remember that guy Assad? See, it's been a little while. We've had so much Ukraine in the news and so many other distractions. It's easy to forget, just how many fracases we're involved in around the world. But lest we not forget, we do have a little fracas going on over in Syria, where we've backed a bunch of good old boys that we think are our team, and these guys are going to push out that mean, evil guy Assad, who might actually use weapons on his own people. Can you imagine that? A leader of a country using weapons, using his military force against his own people. Why, that guy, he should be took out and hung like they did to Saddam, right? Well, we've been backing these boys. Turns out a lot of them are what we would have referred to as Al-Qaeda in a previous incarnation, but that's okay. This week, they're our buddies. They came to Washington to meet with Kerry here, and of course, they got a whole shopping list of various armaments that they need. They need some anti-aircraft missiles to take out Assad's helicopters. They need some of those fancy tow missiles to take out Assad's armored vehicles. They had a whole shopping list of stuff that they wanted. But in the article, and this is kind of cute. Every once in a while, this guy Kerry, every once in a while you catch this guy telling the truth. And it's kind of frightening when it happens. And I think a lot of people in the administration are taken back when old Kerry gets up there and runs his yap without a script and actually sometimes tells the truth. But this is interesting. U.S. Secretary of State says the United States and its allies have wasted a year in Syria by failing to coordinate efforts to overthrow President Bashar al-Assad. Duh. Seems the fellows that we're backing are just as inclined to shoot at each other as they are to our designated bad guy. It's pretty bad when you get 3 or 4 pit bulls in the ring and you say, okay, you see that chicken over there? Y'all pit bulls, just go over there and just tear up that chicken, okay? Yeah, go get him. And the pit bulls start chewing on each other, and the chicken just sits there clucking, laying eggs. Well, that's kind of what's been going on with our little fracas in Syria. As a matter of fact, there's an indication that the boys down in the southern border of Syria, kind of close to Jordan, they were kind of the stalwarts of this thing. They were kind of pulling, all pulling the oars at to the same drum. Well, somebody over there got a wild hair and snatched some colonel of the other group, and now those two guys are about ready to go to each other's throat. Now, they already had this problem up in the northern section, the section that borders on Turkey. Those guys, just got so busy shooting at each other that Assad and his forces were able just to come in and kick their butts. I mean, they were permitted to withdraw from the area with their weapons. So, a lot of people say, well, Assad didn't really win that one because, they got to withdraw with their weapons. But Assad did recapture a good bit of territory that had fallen under the control of our boys. So it's pretty hard for the United States and its allies in that fracas to really consider that a victory of any sort. And, of course, now our boys in the southern part of Syria are starting to point their weapons at each other instead of Assad. And you just never know. I mean, they're going to probably be asking for some of those billions and billions of bullets that we've been stockpiling for the last few years to put in their small arms so that they can more effectively shoot each other. I mean, to heck with tow missiles. They don't need to take out tanks when you're just shooting at your buddy next door. Anyway, Syria back in the news after a momentary pause. Here's another one. And I just love this kind of stuff. Climate change. We don't want to call it global warming anymore because all things considered, it's kind of stopped warming. So let's refer to it as climate change. And the climate goes through periodic warm cycles, periodic cool cycles, on and on and on. This has been going on for as long as there's been recorded history. A lot of people attribute the rise of great civilizations to periods in the Earth's history when there has been a warming trend of the climate. Historians would point to Egypt, even Mesopotamia. They would point to the Roman Empire. They would point to the Renaissance in Europe as all being pushed by a period of great abundance caused by a warming of the environment. So, should we really be scared of global warming? Well, I'm sure that there are parts of the world that are going to suffer more than others, but in general, periods of global warming have been accompanied by tremendous increases in food production. All of a sudden, there are periods of plenty. Historically speaking, there's really very little to be concerned with about a global warming period. I mean, if you base it purely on the historical record, you would be saying, yeah, bring it on. You got plenty of food for everybody. We've got a big population to feed. A warmer Earth might actually be a good thing. But you got this other group out there who just cannot leave anything that even looks like it might be a crisis alone. And they're also desperate to raise money because, see, they put this thing out there called Obamacare, thinking it was going to generate a whole heck of a lot of revenue, and it appears it's kind of fallen flat on its face. More on that later. But, these fellas are now desperate for new sources of revenue and a better and more efficient way to get into your back pocket and pick a few bucks out of your wallet. Well, Fox News reports that a new and dire global warming report from the Obama administration warns of a growing link between human activity. See, this is where I disagree with them. They keep wanting to link these periods of climatic change. They keep wanting to link it to human activity. That is where I differ with them. Between human activity and extreme weather across the country, but Republicans charge the findings will be used to muscle through costly emissions regulations. Yeah, that's what it boils down to. I mean, it's ways to regulate more business for their buddies and better ways to, extract more money from you goyim. The National Climate Assessment, 4 years in the making, gave a region-by-region breakdown of how climate change is impacting the United States in the form of droughts and heat ranges, heat waves, yeah. Yeah, the report, though, quickly came under fire from Republicans who said administration would use it to push job-killing regulations. You betcha. Instead of making the environment drastically better, the president's strategy will make the climate for unemployed Americans even worse. That's a legitimate concern. Because, if you divert money in an economy from the creation of product, which generally means you're creating employment, and instead you have to put that into regulatory obedience. You must emit less of this and you must, emit less of that. The only folks that really get more work out of that are regulators and enforcers. So it looks like the prospect for people who move papers from one pile to another is very bright, and the future for people who are willing to go out and shoot somebody not willing to comply with their regulation, they have good job prospects. So, you youngsters out there who are planning for your future, getting ready to enter the workforce, what you really, really, really want to study up on is how to efficiently move paper from one pile to another, or how to carry a gun and shoot somebody as a paid enforcer. Job prospects for folks in those lines of work look like they're going to be real good in the near future. So, yeah, we're real worried about climate change, particularly that there global warming. I tell you, the global warming is just the biggest boogeyman. It's facing us right now. And on a related note, of course, we had 3 feet of snow in Colorado in the middle of May. Now look, snowstorms in that part of the country in May are not unheard of. Okay, so it's not like, but I'm going to sit here and giggle about it anyway because, they're beating their chest saying how, my driving my SUV is going to cause, the earth to warm up and everything. And then, of course, the day after they make that announcement, Colorado gets hit with 3 feet of snow. I understand this unseasonably harsh snowstorm made it all the way to like Nebraska. I mean, it started in, and I understand thunderstorms are even supposed to reach us here on the East Coast sometime either tonight or tomorrow. So, yeah, the big storm front came through. Yeah, it happens. It's not like it's never happened before. But with the big announcement about how global warming is going to send us all to an early grave, the fact that we got a big snowstorm in the Midwest of the United States in the middle of May, I'm going to laugh about that because it just, timing is everything. Gotta love it. Mid-May snowstorm dumped as much as 3 feet of snow on Colorado's Rocky Mountains on Monday. Midwest braced for hail and other severe weather. Snowplows cleared the way for the Monday morning rush hour. I think that's cool. God has a sense of humor, He's up there laughing up his sleeve right now. Go ahead. Announce your global warming's gonna kill everybody on, and we'll get you with a big old snowstorm. You betcha. Gotta love it. I tell you, I'm going to try to get my little blurb on my favorite subject, Obamacare, covered before we get out of here for our first break of the evening. I only got about a minute and a half to get this out there, so let's see how good I can do it. This article out of Breitbart. 74% of Obamacare enrollees already had insurance. Basically, their supposed goal in this was to get the uninsured insured. Well, what they're finding out is that roughly 3 out of 4 people who've signed up for Obamacare had an insurance policy that, because of Obamacare, got canceled. I've also heard that some of the state Obamacare exchanges are falling on really hard times There's at least 4 states that are looking for reorganization or maybe a federal government bailout because their infrastructure set up to accommodate Obamacare has not met with expectations. Basically, this big revenue source that Obamacare was supposed to be has not panned out. Surprise, surprise, surprise. They thought this was going to be a big goose that laid a golden egg, and that there was going to be all kinds of government revenue associated with it. And more, they're finding that it ain't going as planned. 2 more states. There's 4 right now whose Obamacare exchanges are. Maryland's one of them, just north of me. Their Obamacare exchanges are failing. They're in deep doo-doo, and 2 others are questionable. So those of you who think Obamacare is a done deal that nobody can now do anything about, keep the pressure on. We need to put this thing to bed. There is a better way to finance health care than Obamacare, and we got to find it, because this Obamacare is obviously not very popular. Less than 41% of the population of the United States now thinks Obamacare is a good idea. I'm hearing the music. It's time for me to blow out of here for the first break. Man, I had to talk faster. I'm talking like a Yankee tonight. We'll be back right after this break. All righty, I think we're back from our first break of the evening, and I had to do some fast talking to get all those items out of the way. In the last half of tonight's broadcast, I had planned to get into some of this Ukraine news, and I tell you, I've taken a lot of heat for not taking a stand on Ukraine. And to be honest with you, I figure I'm a lot like most of you out there. This thing in Ukraine is really confusing to me. And I'm just an average guy, and it's gotten to the point where I don't believe anything the United States federal government says. I mean, frankly, if it comes from the federal government, I just assume it's lies, distortions, and propaganda. Well, to be honest with you, I don't think much more of Russia. If it comes out of Russia, I just immediately assume it's lies, distortions, and propaganda. So, looking at this thing going back and forth, I'm feeling kind of like a ping pong ball. I keep getting bounced back and forth. And I can tell you here recently, it appears that the coup government that is currently in charge of Kiev has either supported or closed their eyes to, or at the very least made themselves culpable by their silence and failure to arrest and prosecute the perpetrators of some really heinous activities against the separatists in the eastern portion of Ukraine. I've heard a lot of rumors. I read an article out of Der Spiegel that indicates that as many as 400 of what we used to refer to as Blackwater, they were Z for a little while, and I think now they got some other new name. They keep hiding under name changes, but they're the same group of armed thugs that were doing the bidding of the CIA in Iraq. Reports are that there are 400 of these guys. They speak English, okay? These are white guys who speak English. Some of them might be your cousins. You may know people who are involved in doing such horrible things. They're paid mercenaries who are doing the bidding of somebody. Now, are these guys doing the bidding of the government in Kiev? Russia says, yeah. Russia says those guys in Kiev are a bunch of neo-Nazi nasty guys, and that, these Muslim extremists that are being brought in, and these mercenaries that are coming in and shooting unarmed civilians who are just trying to go express their opinion at a polling place. They're saying that these people are financed by U.S. and EU interests, and that the government currently in power in Kiev is supporting these activities. Now, if you look at the U.S. news, oh, no. These were local militias who were organized spontaneously and didn't agree with this other group over here, and the Kiev didn't have nothing to do with it. The United States is perfectly innocent. EU is perfectly innocent. Wouldn't do anything like that. Well, of course, some of these units were obviously Ukrainian National Guard who are operating at the behest of the current authorities in Kiev. Now, once again, I'll remind you, these guys who are currently carrying the keys to the executive washroom in Kiev were not elected by anybody. Okay? They came to power through a coup d'etat. Normally, United States foreign policy is they don't recognize any government that is not duly elected as the representatives of the people of that nation, unless it suits their interest. And in this case, it did. As a matter of fact, apparently, the United States spent about $5 billion of your hard-earned tax dollars fomenting the revolt that brought the current group of thugs into power. People in the East say, look, we didn't elect those sons of bitches. We have no interest in being governed by them. We want to take a vote. We want to have a referendum to be independent of those guys because we've got nothing in common with them. We do not believe in their neo-Nazi positions. We want to stand on our own. That's what went on late last week. There were areas of the eastern portion of Ukraine where people went to the polls to vote on whether they would like to separate from the government currently in power in Kiev. There was at least one incident filmed where what looked to be a bunch of these armed thugs basically invaded a polling place, told all the voters, hey, y'all just go on home now, go on home, voting's shut down, we're shutting it down. And they occupied the polling place. Now, later on in the day, some fellas, who were organizing the vote came by and said, who the hell are you? This is a polling place. You've chased away people who have a right to express their opinion. What the hell are you doing? Well, the guns were pointed, and these people basically stood up to the armed thugs, even though they were unarmed. At least 2 were gunned down. Some say it was a lot more than that. Bottom line is this situation in Ukraine could go very, very bad. Right now, the I guess what you would call the provisional government of the Republic of Donetsk has given Ukrainian military units 48 hours to withdraw, or they intend to declare war. These folks, of course, are aligned with Russia. Whether Russia will actually come to their aid with support in the form of weapons, armored units, maybe air support, maybe even boots on the ground, nobody really knows. Vladimir Putin's got to be doing some serious cogitating about now, though, because when you think about it, he's kind of damned if he do, damned if he don't. I mean, put yourself in Vladimir Putin's position. If he goes into Ukraine in support of the separatists who are pro-Russian, who are ethnically Russian, who predominantly speak Russian, who adhere to a Russian identity, and in fact may wish their part of Ukraine to join up with Russia, if he goes in support of those guys, Western media is going to say, oh, he's like Hitler invading Poland and Czechoslovakia, and, we ain't going to do no Chamberlain thing. We're going to kick Russia's ass. Yeah. Okay? If he doesn't commit resources to protecting Russian nationals, his own people will label him a coward and a traitor, and someone who would let ethnic Russians suffer at the hands of what many on that side of the argument consider to be an EU invasion of what has been historically a Russian sphere of influence. Which side's the good guys? Which side's the bad guys? To be honest with you, I'm still confused. I don't know. I'd like to hear your ideas on that. The number is 877-342-6673. That's 877-342-6673. Let's see if you've got an opinion that's more rational than mine. But for right now, got to take a quick break. Be right back. Alrighty, I'm going to jump on the music a little bit because I'm going to try to get as much in this last segment as I possibly can. Okay, first of all, for those of you who missed that toll-free number I gave out just before we left for the break, the number is 877-342-6673. I'm really interested in your opinion on this Ukraine issue. Now, yeah, I mean, are there forces within the United States who would really like to get a new Cold War going? Because, a lot of them made a lot of money during the last Cold War. Boy, if we could just get, that going again, there's money to be made. Boy, we could milk the American public for big defense budgets and have bigger, shinier, better weapons. And, they're just absolutely having orgasms over the idea of firing up a new Cold War between, really don't want a very big shooting war because, that 2 million sunblock is hard to buy these days. But, boy, if they could just get a really good Cold War going, that would be cool. Everybody'd make a lot of money. Don't you get tired of being played for a fool? I would prefer not to be a fool for my government nor the Russian government. Frankly, I think they're both assholes. Back in the old days, I used to think, it'd be really cool if when something like this was going on, where it looks like two big, bullies in the world were going to, come up to a, big shooting match or something. We'll take, John F. Kennedy and Nikita Khrushchev, strip them both down to jockey shorts, put them in a ring, let them duke it out. Let's see who wins. The problem is, Nikita Khrushchev and Kennedy with his bad back and all, that probably would have been a pretty fair matchup. But putting Putin in the ring with Obama would be kind of like putting Pee Wee Herman in with the Terminator. I don't think that would be a fair fight. What do you think? Does anybody out there, I'm giving you the opportunity because, see, I've taken a lot of heat. I've gotten a lot of nasty emails and so forth. The folks out there who think the Russians are the good guys and this are saying, Gary, you're full of crap. You don't know what you're talking about. The Russians are the good guys. And I've taken a lot of hate mail from folks on the other side saying, oh, no. You're supporting Vladimir Putin in expanding Russia back into the Soviet Union. You need to get behind the EU and the U.S. because they're the good guys. They're wearing the white hats. I'd kind of like to hear your opinion on it because, frankly, this is a very complex issue where, a poor old guy like me with straw for brains is very confusing. So I'd like to hear somebody with, a stronger intellect than my own educate me on why I should fall down on one side or the other in this. Or then again, why shouldn't I just take Ron Paul's point of view and say, why the hell are we there in the first place? This is none of our business. We got enough problems at home. Let the Ukrainians fight their own damn battle. We got no business sticking our nose in it. Now that's kind of where an old country boy with straw for brains falls on this issue. To be honest with you, it's none of my business. Do I get a big thrill out of seeing armed thugs gun down unarmed people who just want to cast a vote? Hell no. That's a horrible thing. But you know what? I got people being gunned down right here in the United States by U.S. policemen. I need to do something about that because that's happening in my backyard on my watch. Woman was just shot down in Salem, Oregon over the weekend over a traffic stop. Some say she was executed with one to the head over a traffic stop. So, yeah, I think it's horrible that somebody in Ukraine goes to cast a ballot and some armed thug pops them with an AK-47. That's a horrible thing. But Ukraine is not my business. I have that type of thing happening right here in the USA. That is my business. I should be able to do something about that. But most of the time, I feel absolutely helpless because when I yell and scream at my politicians saying, what the hell are you allowing to go on here? When did we get, Andy of Mayberry, when did we get him hooked on steroids? Before you start complaining about the trash in your neighbor's yard, maybe you ought to plant some posies in that American Standard you got out in the backyard there, okay? Because we got enough problems here in the United States that are out of control and really need resolutions before we go sticking our nose in people's business in Ukraine and Yemen and Syria and Iran and South Sudan and God only knows where else. America seems to have a national interest. Why is it not in the national interest of the United States to get our own house in order? If we were so damn perfect, wouldn't be so bad for us to go passing judgment on others. But we're far from being there. Well, I tell you, it doesn't look like I'm going to get any of those harassers and haranguers that have been sending me all that evil email about, what a dumb, stupid nitwit I am for not being on the side of Vladimir Putin or not being on the side of John Kerry and Obama. My point of view, you're entitled to your opinion. You're entitled to express your opinion. I'm entitled to be extremely confused by this situation in Ukraine. I am entitled to sit back and say, why is this any of my business? I'm saddened by the events going on over there. But you know what? I got problems here in my own backyard that need to be sorted out. I think I'll let the Ukrainians take care of their problems, and I'll try to take care of mine. Another issue. Unless you've been living under a rock for a long time, you probably know that we're coming up on the 1-year anniversary since a fellow named Snowden came out of the I almost said the closet, but that would be more Greenwald style. But that not in any case, this fella came out, the spy that came out of the cold, and this fella Snowden, just to refresh your memory, because I know folks have a pretty short attention span. They forget things easy. This guy Snowden was apparently employed by a subcontractor to the NSA. He's a computer nerd type, and apparently he saw a lot of stuff going through there that just really did not look, shall we say, kosher. Is everybody going to call me an anti-Semite for calling it not kosher? Probably. That's okay. I get a lot of hate mail calling me an anti-Semite too. But after a while, you just get used to that kind of stuff. But needless to say, this fellow Snowden apparently snagged a whole bunch of data from the NSA that detailed their, shall we say, methods of operation, how and at what level they were gleaning information from your telephone and computer communications. Now, we all knew this was going on. We all knew it was going on. I mean, I remember, the rumors about Echelon going back into the, late 70s, early 80s. We knew that, couldn't hardly go to the bathroom without somebody at some government agency, some three-letter boy, knowing what you were about. But the extent of the spying, just how much, at what volume level these guys were cranking. You ever been stopped at a stoplight when the guy with the big boom box in his car comes by and you roll up your windows, you do everything you can do, but your car still vibrates because he's playing his bass so loud? Well, that is the volume at which the NSA was playing this spying game. They grabbing everything that ain't nailed down, right down to putting back doors in your home router so that they can very easily attach to your router and just see what you're doing. Well, Greenwald's book has finally been released. His book called Nowhere to Hide. Now, Greenwald's taken a lot of heat. Some of it probably deservedly so, because I understand that, push comes to shove, this guy Greenwald, he's a jerk. I mean, let's get right down to it. He's a jerk. But there's nothing illegal about being a jerk. There is something illegal about spying on people. And this guy Greenwald was instrumental in taking the raw material that Snowden presented him with and turning it into something that can be comprehended by a poor old Southern boy with straw for brains. Well, the book is out. And this is one of the things Greenwald's taking a lot of heat. Oh, he's making money on it. Well, duh. I mean, this is what the guy does for a living. He is a journalist. He is a writer. He investigates something and he produces a synopsis on it, a story, if you will, and he sells it to the highest bidder. Oh, but he's working for some outfit that's owned by the guy who owns eBay and this, that. Okay, and your point is, would it be better if he worked for an outfit that was owned by Rupert Murdoch? I mean, when you're in that game, when you're in the game of producing news and disseminating news, there's only about, a half a dozen corporations in the United States anyway. I guess around the world, there might be 20, maybe 30. There are only very limited distributors of news content around the world, and the numbers continue to shrink. Used to be almost every city in the United States had 2, maybe 3 major newspapers. Nowadays, you're lucky if you got one. Used to be you had, 3, 4 different takes on the news you could watch. Nowadays, it sounds like they're all reading from the same script. Doesn't matter whether you watched a CBS or the NBC or the Who's It What's. They're all reading from the same script. They all get their material from the same news wires. So, yeah, should we pick on Greenwald for making a buck off of this? Should we pick on him for lining his self up with somebody who's got enough money to make sure he can get his message out there? I don't know. I will tell you this. I'm going to buy his book because I want to read it and I want to support the truth. That's it for me. I'm done barking at the moon for this Monday, and you betcha I'll be back next Monday and we'll do it all again. Good night, y'all.
Calling out to you. Won't you turn, won't you turn around?